I read 15 books in June, and I'm finally doing my wrap up because I have been out of the country in Cabo. If you guys want to watch my reading vlog when I was in Cabo and read tons of books, and I read for 24 hours, I will link that below. But I can finally do this little wrap up. I read so many good books in the month of June. I also had some terrible reads, so let's just get into it. The first book I read was 99 Days by Katie Kugo? I still don't know how to say her last name, and I rated this book 2 stars. I think that I rated this book 2 stars because I truly just didn't really like any of the characters, and I have been enjoying more morally gray characters lately, but when a character is just like, I don't say bad because like, I don't know, like, I wouldn't say that they're bad characters, but I just feel like they were very selfish, and I had a hard time with that, and I feel like they didn't really grow much by the end of the book. This book was about a girl who pretty much was interested in 2 brothers, and it feels like she's going to pick one, but I feel like the entire book she's just stringing them both along, and I just kind of was over it by the end of it. I didn't really have much grace for any of the characters, so this one was just 2 stars for me. This book is a debut novel by Taylor Torres, and it's called The Two of Us. I rated this 4 out of 5 stars and it literally made me swoon. You guys know I love a good friends to lovers story, and this one was definitely that. It also was a second chance romance, and the quotes in this are just unmatched. I really fell in love with their story, and it just was really, really good. I also feel like this gave like nostalgic vibes in a sense of like how sometimes when you feel like you can't grow in a space, you like want to run away from that space, and I feel like that's what the main character did in this story. She's kind of ran away from her hometown, and coming back to it was a little scary for her, which I can definitely relate to because I like moved away from home and ended up moving back, obviously for completely different reasons. I literally just moved away for college, but I feel like the author of this book touched on so many different emotions and feelings in this book, and it was so cute. I really enjoyed it. An American Marriage by Silver Sparrow, was by Tayari Jones, who also wrote Silver Sparrow, was one that I rated 3 out of 5 stars, but now looking back, I feel like it was a much harder read for me than most, and it's because it really talks about the prison system, and there's someone who ends up pretty much like being wrongly accused and has to go to jail and are in prison, and they're in there for a very long time, and I feel like as a Black woman I'm very aware of the inequality with like the prison system and Black people, and so it was very hard to read that because I don't know, I use reading as an escape, not necessarily to like pound information that I'm well aware of into my brain. So I don't know. I also feel like I had like empathy for Roy when he went into prison, but then when he got out, I feel like I didn't have as much empathy for him. I also didn't really like the characters. I feel like this is a theme in this month. I just didn't really like a lot of the characters. I feel like they all were definitely living their own lives and not thinking about other people. And so this is a book about Roy, who he's with Celestial, and they pretty much have the American dream, and then he ends up getting wrongly accused and sent to prison. Well, while he's in prison, I don't want to like spoil anything, but Celestial pretty much ends up having like her own life, and like things for her change, and so whenever he comes out, which she doesn't really expect, I don't think that that's a spoiler, I feel like that's on the back, but whenever he comes out, things are just different, and they have to like learn to navigate life together if they want to navigate life together. So I don't know, it just, I feel like it was okay. It was 3, pretty average, nothing incredible about it, but nothing terrible either. I read A Little Life by Hanya Yangahara, and I actually rated this book 2 out of 5 stars. I have a whole reading vlog on this book and my full thoughts on this book if you guys want to watch that reading vlog. This took me, I think, over a month or maybe over a month and a half to finish. It's a thick book. It's about 800 pages or a little over. I feel like this book was unnecessarily graphic, and I know a lot of people really enjoy this book, but I feel like the author really was trying to pull apart your emotions to make you feel something, to make you rate this book higher. And I feel like humans are going to feel things when they see people in pain for the most part. And I don't think that that's necessarily a good reason to like rate a book high. Like, for example, I feel like I see a lot of people rate books like high if they're like an easy read, like if the story is easy to digest, but not necessarily because they like the story. Or maybe they'll rate a book high if there's like a lot of good quotes in it. And I don't know, I feel like for me, I usually rate books high or love a book when I can not only relate to the characters, but also relate to the story. It's an easy read, it flows naturally, like I'm just really connected to it. And I feel like you can be connected to the characters because of their pain, but I don't know, I feel like she kind of uses their pain to like make you like this story and maybe make it sell. So I don't know, that's just my personal opinion, but I have a ton of thoughts on this book if you guys want to watch my reading vlog and all the thoughts behind this book. Because I feel like everyone loves this book and I just didn't really love it. I rated it 2 stars and not like a 1 because the writing is incredible. She is definitely a great writer. I just feel like there's a couple problems with this book and the way that she like uses our empathy for the character to make us like this book. So I don't know, 2 stars for me. It wasn't my favorite. The next book I read was I Think I Might Love You by Christina C. Jones, and this book was so good. I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. And this was a really good book because, for one, I've read Christina C. Jones' writing and she is a really good writer, but the last book I read, I think it was called like The Perfect Scene or something. It was okay, it wasn't amazing. I think I rated it like 3 out of 5 stars, but I just knew that I loved the writing, so I knew if I found a story that I liked that I would really connect with it. And I really loved this one. It was a very quick story, so I ended up purchasing the rest of the series. I think there's like 3 more books about all the other sisters in this series. I just absolutely fell in love with the 2 characters and how they like really connected with each other. It was also a really quick read, so if you're in a slump, I feel like this is a good one to read. It was only 133 pages, so you'll be able to breeze through this so fast. I rated Layla by Colleen Hoover 2 out of 5 stars. It's not one of my favorites of hers at all. I think that I didn't like this book because like the main character kind of falls in love with a ghost, and I didn't really expect a like paranormal type book, and so I went into this fairly blind and came out of it being like, what the heck did I just read? And it just wasn't my favorite. So 2 out of 5. I probably wouldn't recommend this one. I read a lot of mid books in this month, and one of the books that was kind of mid was WAhala by Nikki May. I rated this 3 out of 5 stars. I think what I liked about this was all the characters really had a personality that like shined through so much. It's about 3 different friends who are in like a friend group, and they all hang out and they add in one more new friend who kind of just like blows up the friendship. And I didn't really expect the ending, so the ending did surprise me and I feel like made me love the book even more. But it still wasn't the best just because, I don't know, it wasn't thrilling enough to be a thriller, but it wasn't like a romance, but it didn't feel like just a fiction either. You know, it like was almost a genre of its own, but I feel like I wished it leaned one way or another, like more like a romance or leaned more into a thriller aspect. Like, I feel like it was just missing a little bit of something, and I don't even know how to like put my finger on what that thing was, but I did love the characters, and I almost wish that they had more books about the other characters in this book because they did have multiple POVs, so you got to get a lot of like backstory of the friends, but I just feel like there were certain characters that I wanted to get more of. And even though this book is still thick, I just found myself like wanting more. But it still was really good. It just wasn't something that I would like write home about. So 3 out of 5 stars, a good read, I would recommend, but just not incredible. After that book, I read Anxious People by Friedrich Backman, and I rated this 1 out of 5 stars. I was so ready to get over with this book. And I know so many people love this book, but it just was like so quirky to me. And this is what I mean by books that I feel people love based on quotes. Like, it is extremely quotable. There's so many things that I could have underlined or like posted on social media or like got some kind of like feeling or depth from, but I almost feel like the author was trying too hard to give those like quotable moments and didn't try hard enough on making the story flow easily. Like I feel like it was pretty choppy. It's about a guy who pretty much decides to rob a bank, and there's 8 other people who are in the bank, and they all have their own different stories, so you get to hear about their stories, but then you kind of figure out that the guy who's robbing the bank is probably like the worst. He's like worse off than the rest of the people he's actually trying to rob. And so it kind of gives you empathy for like the world and people and their circumstances, but it also gives, have you seen like Wes Anderson movies or like Fantastic Mr. Fox, like kind of quirky and weird, and like you'll see them say things and you're just like, huh? Like, I feel like that's how this book read to me. Like, it was trying to be funny, but also trying to be like this deep philosophical book. I was ready for it to be over. So many of you guys have said that I should read more of this author's writing, but again, I don't really read many books written by men, and maybe this is why. I don't know. Let me know if I should read more of this author's books, but this one just did not do it for me, and it was my first one. 1 out of 5 stars. On to the next one. I read Someday Maybe by Ani Noir Benelli, and this book I rated 3.5 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed this one because it talked a lot about grief, and I feel like if someone is really struggling right now and they really are having a hard time in life, this would be a good book to read. But I also, I feel like just like this book, we did have some good like books that I read this month, so there were some again like this that I feel like we're really missing something, because this book is about, and it says this literally on the back, the main character, her husband decides to take his own life, and so you see her go through like the ebbs and flows of grief and trying to like claw her way back to life because she obviously loved her husband so much. But I almost wish that I had seen more of her at the end and like being better, I guess, but maybe that's just like a part of the story, in a sense that like sometimes we aren't able to put our hearts back together enough to be like whole humans like we used to be. But again, I love this book, and it was a Good Morning America Book Club book recommendation, so I definitely would recommend this. I just feel like, you know me, I love my happy endings, and this one kind of left me feeling like I wished that she had a little bit more of a happy ending. But again, a very good read, very sad read, but a very, I feel like a spot on book for how people grieve and like an accurate depiction of grieving. So 3.5 out of 5 stars for this one. I'm just now realizing that I read 16 books and not 15 books in the month, and this is why I post on Goodreads the minute I finish a book, because I will literally forget. But I read The Mister by E.L. James, and this book has spice. It is spicy, 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 heavy on the spice, and I'm not someone who normally reads a ton of spice, but I did enjoy this book. I rated this a 3 out of 5, and I think my favorite thing about this book is that like it has more than just like the typical like billionaire, rich guy, poor girl type story. Like the suspense it kind of gave was similar to like a thriller, but not like so much so where like don't go into this feeling like it's a thriller, but it was a romance with like hints of like, I don't know, excitement, and I really like that because I feel like you don't see that very often with romance. You just kind of get like the typical romance plot, and this is similar to like a Cinderella story because Maxim, his family is like super rich, and they end up like passing on their like inheritance to him, and so he just is like, I don't really know if I can like handle this and like deal with all this because I've never really had this much responsibility. So he ends up like trying to take care of that, but at the same time his maid kind of catches his eye, and he's like, like she's cute, like what's up with her? So they kind of like connect, but she has like a dark past, and so you like learn things about her as things go on. And it did have like a lot of spice, but there's also like a storyline with it. So 3 out of 5, book I'd recommend, but only for someone who wants like spicy, spicy spice. But it was a good read, 3 out of 5. And then I read Wash Day Diaries, which I rated 3.5 out of 5. And I actually was thinking that I rated this a 4, but now I remember why I didn't. And the biggest reason is because I wanted this book to be longer. I loved it so much, and I wish that they had a little bit more dialogue. Like, some of the pages in this book, because it is like a graphic novel, some of them just had like no words and they just had like pictures. But I feel like if you're in a slump, this is the perfect book to read. This is about 3 friends, and all the friends in this book have different things going on in their lives, but literally there is no other book that I have found that really encapsulates, like, I don't know how much like history and culture and beauty there is behind like blackness and our hair. Like, it's just so spot on. Like, the way that you will like go to the hairdresser and like everyone talks, and you'll be in like a group chat with your friends talking about like when you're gonna get your hair done, and like all the things around like hair, and I don't know, it just was so nostalgic for me and so good, and I hope that this author or these authors come out with more books like this, because it was such an easy read. So again, if you're in a slump, I feel like this is such a good one to read. It was so fun, and literally the only reason I didn't rate this higher is because I wish it were longer. It was so good, and I wish there was a little bit more dialogue so I could just fall in love even more with the characters, but I found myself on the edge of my seat. I think I read this in like 30 minutes. It's so good. The next book that I read was Meet Cute Diary by Emery Lee, and I rated this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I feel like I learned a lot in this book, and this is a book about Noah, who has like a blog where they are like sharing stories of like little meet cutes, and they pretty much are like making up the stories like they're not even true, and someone finds out, or I guess someone like suspects that they're fake, and so they pretty much are like, we're gonna out this blog and like tell everyone that this is fake. And so Noah decides that they are going to like make sure that doesn't happen, and so they do like a little fake dating situation with one of their friends to pretty much show that like the blog is like real. And I don't know, it was really cute. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun book, and I found myself reading it really quickly because I wanted to figure out like if people found out about the blog. And I can't spoil anything, but it was really cute and I enjoyed it. Okay, after looking at Goodreads again, I'm realizing I read 17 books last month because I missed another book. I read the Lonely Hearts Book Club by Lucy Gilmore, and I rated this book 1 out of 5 stars. This is why I forgot this book, because I didn't like it. I think the biggest thing that I didn't like is it is hard for me to empathize with people who are mean, period, no matter what your age is. And the main character in this book is a lonely, like, elderly guy. He goes to the library and he's like super grumpy and mean to like everyone, and while he's there, the like librarian connects with him, and he would come in every day and he's kind of like mean to her every day, but she just like kind of is trying to break down his walls. Then one day he doesn't show up, and so she just suspects that he like has something that happened to him. So she goes to his house, finds out he has some health issues, and decides to like start a little book club while he's there. And there's a ton of other things that like intermingle, and I think that the biggest problem that I had with this was that main character. They were grumpy almost the entire time of this book, and I will say like their walls were definitely broken down a little bit towards the end, but it took so long. And so the entire book, like one of the main characters being so grumpy and everyone just like banding around them and trying to like support them and be there for them, was beautiful to see, but super hard for me, because I feel like no matter how, like what age, no matter like anything, if someone's not treating you like you're a human, like I am just like, get out, like keep it stepping, keep it moving. Like you do just not deserve to be treated like you're less than human. And I feel like the main character kind of did that for a lot of the people that were in this book club. So 1 out of 5 stars. It wasn't my favorite, and yeah, I literally forgot that I read this book. I think this was my highest rated book that I read like during the entire month of June, and it is Daisy Hates, and I rated this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I am obsessed with this series. I'm so in love with it. Can't get enough of it. Eat, sleep, and breathe this series. Literally, I'm already reading Magnolia Park's Long Way Home, and I'm almost finished with it. And this series, I am literally in love with. I hope they turn this into a TV series. So this book is about Daisy Hates, and I just can't even explain how much I love this book. So I think what I love most about this book is it feels like the characters are real, and it feels like the drama that's happening is actually happening to you or to your friend group. And so it kind of feels like you're watching like a reality TV show, but you're like a part of it, but obviously it's a book, so like you're not a part of it, but the characters just feel so real. If you want like drama, I mean, there's a lot of toxic relationships in this, but there's also a lot of like beautiful relationships or potentially beautiful relationships if people like got their act together. So I don't know, I love this book. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Literally rated Magnolia Parks 4.5 out of 5 stars and literally cried when I read that book. So the whole series so far has been so good to me, and I love this book. Next book I read was Finding Cinderella by Colleen Hoover, and I rated this 3 out of 5 stars. I think I like the rest of the series better than this one. This one just was a little dated in some of the stuff that they said, and I guess that it did come out in 2013, so like I'll give this book that, but I just wish that she'd almost left this book out and like just left it at losing hope and hopeless. But I do need to read the rest of the books in the series. I think All Your Perfects is in this, or maybe that's like another series, I'm not sure. But I wasn't a huge fan of this, it wasn't my favorite. Could have done without it. The last book that I read in the month was The Housemaid, and I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. It was so good, such a good thriller, and you guys know that I rate books pretty harshly. Like you could see all my ratings out of this month. I literally rated The Housemaid 4 out of 5 stars, Daisy Hates 4.5 out of 5 stars, and Take a Chance 4 out of 5 stars, and I Think I Might Love You 4 out of 5 stars, and The Two of Us 4 out of 5 stars. So that isn't very many books that are in like a 4 or above star rating out of like literally 17 books. There were only a few. So this being the one of them, I feel like I was so surprised, because sometimes when books are hyped up on like TikTok and stuff, I'm like, okay, sure, it's good, like, you know, but you just never know, because I feel like sometimes things are overly hyped for no reason. But no, the hype is real for this. I did kind of guess the ending like a little bit, but even though I guessed a little bit of the like twist, it still was so good, and I already bought the second one. Can't wait to read it. I'm back in my thriller era. I picked up thrillers, and I'm gonna be reading more soon, so I'll be giving you guys more recs for new thrillers that I picked up. So yeah, I really love this one. And that is all 17 books that I read in June. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna try to read 20 or 15 or somewhere in there for July. If you guys want to see what my TBR is, or some of my TBR, head over to the little video where Brady and I we like went through my TBR and he picked out my books for vacation. I have a bunch of my books that I'm thinking of reading in that video, and I'll see you guys in the next one, because I post 3 times a week. So I'll be back here in literally like 2 days. So bye guys.